Good morning. It's Thursday, May 13th, 2021. Birthday of Hall of Fame boxer Joe Louis. Joe Louis held the belt longer than anybody. Joe Louis was the best pure puncher, better than anybody. When it comes to punching, the way that he turned his hips, the way that he used his whole body, the force that went through his fists, especially his right, into anybody that he was in the ring with was too great for a lot of men to stand up against. Joe Frazier, Joe Louis. Joe Frazier actually modeled himself after Joe Louis. A lot of people don't know that, but when Joe Frazier was growing up, they said, "Oh, Joe, you got the form. You look like Joe Louis," and that really inspired him when he was young. Joe Frazier was also Christian, just like Joe Louis was Christian. They believed in a higher power. They believed in the Savior. They fought like their lives depended on it, and that Jesus was coming when they, it's a different kind of fight that you got when you got faith in God. The hero that a lot of people know, the American hero that a lot of people know as Joe Louis, was actually born Joe Louis Barrow. Joe Louis Barrow. And he had a hard upbringing when it comes to what it was that was demanded of him physically. That was one of the reasons that he was strong. He had to work. He worked in the fields. He did all kinds of different jobs, but he did manual labor. Joe Louis, she became known by, he dropped the last name. His son, Joe Louis Barrow, still keeps the last name, but Joe Louis, he's buried now in Arlington National Cemetery. Today we're going to celebrate him out here, fight hate with gloves. I think that where I'm going to focus is on the fact that he was really a political prisoner, even though he didn't get locked up like Jack Johnson, like Muhammad Ali, like Reuben Hurricane Carter, who we celebrated last week. Joe Louis, in a lot of ways, was a political prisoner. He was a person who was really in debtor's prison his whole career, his whole life, and even after his career, and until he died, he was in debtor's prison. The IRS said that he owed them this. The IRS said that he owed him that he owed Uncle Sam what it was that was due to him. But Joe Louis fought for free. I want to say that again. Joe Louis fought for free. Muhammad Ali, he still take a lot of flack because of his stance, because of how he stood up, because of what it is that he stood for. And Muhammad Ali, he called Joe Louis an Uncle Tom. There's pictures of Muhammad Ali smiling with Joe Louis, laughing with Joe Louis. You can't call somebody Uncle Tom and then smile with him, but Muhammad Ali kind of called everybody Uncle Tom. He called Joe Frazier an Uncle Tom. He called Ernie Terrell, the one that wouldn't say Muhammad Ali, the one that called Cassius Clay Ernie Terrell, he called him a Uncle Tom. Pretty much everybody that was not Muslim to Muhammad Ali was Uncle Tom back in the day. Dr. King. But, man, Joe Louis fought for free. And the money from a lot of his fights during the war effort were given to the United States Relief, the war front. And he actually served. He was a veteran, Joe Louis, veteran. And this country, she gave everything to, still, after his career, wanted more. They still threatened to throw him in jail. They still gave him fine on top of fine for money that he supposedly owed to the IRS. They made his life, his later years, absolutely miserable. I'm not going to say absolutely miserable. I'm not going to say that they weren't without joy. I'm not going to say that he wasn't celebrated all the way up until his death. And in death, he's buried in Arlington National Cemetery. This is a great honor that is not bestowed upon everyone, even all soldiers. Everybody doesn't get buried in Arlington. And that means something. But what do these trophies and statues really mean? What does this history really mean? This American iconography, this legacy. He was an American hero. He still is to so many. Joe Louis. But he really was enslaved. Slavery never ended. And Joe Louis, in a lot of ways, working for free, fighting for free, telling everybody to enlist, and giving up his purses, and then still being dealt with by the IRS. Joe Louis was enslaved. Tom Molyneux had more freedom. Jack Johnson before him, who was the champion before him, between the time of Jack Johnson and Joe Louis, there was no black champion between Jack Johnson and Joe Louis. Joe Louis had to live a different kind of life. He had to be a different kind of champion in order to get that opportunity. Keep up the good fight. Finish the race. There's a lot more that I could say. There's a lot more that I'm going to say. But right now, I'm just contemplating. And we'll see you out here at 5 o'clock. Fight hate with gloves.